Hi guys, welcome back to the Aspiring Home Cook. Today I have a special recipe video for you. There's a couple of recipes that I'm going to show you in this one, but all come together to make one gorgeous meal. We're going to make some spinach and feta gozlemes, vegan feta of course, and we're going to serve this up with a gorgeous tabbouleh salad. This just screams summer for me. That being said, I literally make this all through the year. So even if you're getting into autumn like we are here in Australia, I'm sure you'll enjoy this recipe. I'm starting off with 2 cups of all-purpose flour or plain flour. To this I'm going to add a little salt to taste and mix that up to make sure that that salt is distributed well. Now adding water gradually, this is just plain water at room temperature. You're going to knead this flour to form a nice smooth dough. Remember, you don't want the dough to be too stiff, neither do you want it to be too soft. And eventually you should end up with a nice smooth pliable ball of dough just like this. Now we're going to cover this with a damp cloth and leave this to rest for about 15 to 20 minutes. While the dough is resting, we can actually start prepping our spinach for the filling. I'm just using some baby spinach here, about roughly 150 grams or so. I'm just going to quickly wash this thoroughly and drain it out. Drain off as much water as you possibly can. If you have a salad spinner, that would work brilliantly here. Or if you'd like, you can just pat it dry with a kitchen towel. I just dried and got rid of as much moisture as I could, and I'm just going to go ahead and proceed with the filling. I'm just giving my leaves a once over and getting rid of any leaves that seem a little past their prime. Next, I'm just going to slice up this spinach into little strips like you can see here. Once all the spinach has been chopped up, I'm going to add in a little plant-based feta cheese. Now, if you don't have access to plant-based feta, you can simply leave it out completely. It will be just a spinach gozleme and it will still be delicious. But for that realistic feel, we're adding a little bit of plant-based feta here. To this, I'm also going to add a light sprinkling of some red chili flakes. These are the hotter version of chili flakes, so use as much or as little as you'd like based on the variety that you've got here. Give everything a quick little mix and your filling for the gozleme is ready. This dough has been resting and like you can see here, it's a lot more slack than it was, but it's still not tacky or sticky. I'm just going to portion the dough out at this stage. I'm rolling it into a log and I'm going to cut this into 8 equal pieces. Roll each of these portions into a nice little ball. And when that's done, you're going to cover it with that same damp cloth and leave this to rest for about 30 minutes. Now this resting time is extremely crucial because when your dough is well rested, it'll be easier to roll it out without it shrinking back to its original size. Now while the dough is resting, we're going to whip up a quick tabbouleh salad. Now for this I'm using some fine bulgur wheat. You will also see these labeled as burgul. For the tabbouleh that I'm making today, I'm just going to need about 1/8 of a cup or so of this, but I am putting together a slightly larger batch, and what I tend to do is I keep the leftovers and use them in grain bowls for meals during the week. So every packet will have instructions on how best to prepare these. Mine instructed me to use a 1:2 of bulgur wheat to hot water, and that's what I'm doing. I've got about 1/2 cup of the bulgur wheat here. I'm going to season that with a little salt to taste, and I'm going to add 2 parts water to this. So I'm going to add in 1 cup of water, hot water from a recently boiled kettle. Give it a little stir. Pop a lid on the bowl or the mug that you're using. I'm just going to use a little plate, but cover it completely, and you're just going to leave this aside for as long as your package directs you to, or until all of that liquid has been absorbed. Now in the meanwhile, we're going to prep our parsley. This is just some flat leaf parsley that I've got here. I'm going to use most of this bunch. Trim off the woody portion of the stalk towards the end. That tends to be a little tough and really isn't that great in a salad. However, it would work great if you were making a stock and you needed to add some seasonings or some flavorings to your vegetable stock. Wash and completely drain off your parsley. And if you have a salad spinner, that would be perfect here. But since I don't have one, I'm just going to lay this out on a clean kitchen towel and pat it dry. We don't want any extra moisture in our salad. Once that's done, we're going to chop up our parsley fairly finely. I've set the parsley aside in a bowl. Next, I'm going to add in one spring onion or green onion, both the white and the green bits. But I'm going to make sure that I slice this fairly thin as well. Next, we're going to add in some mint leaves. I've got a few sprigs of mint here. Again, I'm not going to use the twiggy stalk bits. I'm just going to use the mint leaves for the salad. Now, I've had tabbouleh both ways, with mint and without the mint as well. So you can either use this or leave it out. It's completely up to you. I'm going to chop these mint leaves really finely and add them to the bowl as well. By now, our bulgur wheat must be ready. Let's have a quick look. Like you can see here, those little granules have soaked up all of that liquid. They've swelled up to a fairly large amount. There's just a tiny bit of liquid in there. So I'm just going to leave that to sit just a little bit longer. If you're hard pressed for time, you can just drain off the excess liquid and use your bulgur wheat. Our salad is almost prepped. We just have to mix everything together. Before we do that, we'll move on and make up our gozleme. I've got Ashley, my husband, helping me in the kitchen today. So I'm going to do all of the rolling while he does the frying bits. I'll show you both processes. So we're going to start off by taking one little ball of dough at a time. Don't overwork your dough at this stage, because the more you work on your dough, the tighter it will get and the harder it will be to roll it out. Lightly add a little dry flour to your rolling board as well as on that ball of dough. Keep the rest of your dough covered with that damp cloth while you're working on each portion. Now we're going to roll this portion out as thin as we can. Once we've got a nice large disc made, we're going to add some of that spinach filling on one half of that disc. Make sure you get a few pieces of the feta in here if you're using it. And try and get that filling almost all the way to the edge. Then flip the other side over and make sure that there's no air pockets built up in there. Now, using your fingers, press together the edges of the gozleme to make sure that they're thoroughly sealed, else your cheese could melt and leak out of that little parcel. Now, this gozleme then goes onto a hot cast iron pan, and you're going to fry this off for a few minutes on a medium heat until you get some beautiful light brown spots on that side. Once they're ready to turn, this is what it will look like on the bottom side. Like I said, little brown spots. You don't want that to get too dark just yet. Once it has cooked off with little brown spots on the second side as well, we're going to brush it with a little olive oil. You can see how beautifully they're puffing up right there on the pan. Instead of olive oil, you can also choose to use butter. And once you've done this on both sides, that's it. Your gozleme is ready. You can now take this off the pan and you're ready to serve up. Let's quickly finish off our tabbouleh salad. Like you can see, our bulgur wheat is nice and fluffy and cooked through. It has soaked up all of that moisture. Using a fork, I'm just going to fluff this around a little bit. And I'm going to chop up a few cherry tomatoes to add to the salad. Season this up with a little bit of salt. Add in some of that bulgur wheat. This bulgur wheat should have cooled down a little by now. Like you can see, I'm not adding very much here. I've probably added about a quarter cup or thereabouts of the cooked bulgur wheat here. Add some fresh lime or lemon juice to the salad. Add a hint of black pepper powder here. Toss everything together really well. Add a tiny drizzle of some extra virgin olive oil. Give everything one last mix, and at this stage it's a great idea to check for seasoning and adjust the salt or the lemon as required. And your tabbouleh salad is ready to be served. Serve up your gozleme with this tabbouleh and a wedge of lime or lemon, and just before eating, squeeze a little bit of that citrus juice over the top, and you're ready to sit back and enjoy. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that recipe as much as we do. It's part of our regular meal rotation around here, so I hope you give it a try. If you do, let me know how you go. And thanks again for joining me today. If you haven't done so, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps us out a lot. And I'll see you soon in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.